Welcome to MI Radio's Myanmar Today. I'm Melody, and here are today's reports. COVID-19 cases in Myanmar up beyond 3,000. Sellers from Danyingone Wholesale Market suffer from impacts of difficult freight transport. MR places special attention to commodity flow as express and circular services reduced. Waterway becomes main focus to avoid shortage of goods amid COVID-19. Before we get to the reports, let's take a look at the featured local news for today. National Reconciliation and Peace Center made an announcement on Monday. It stated that the National Reconciliation and Peace Center has put an emphasis on implementing reconciliation, internal peace, and political dialogue, which are crucial for establishing a democratic federal union, expected by national people for many years. The works for increasing negotiation momentum have encountered some difficulties under prevention, control, and treatment measures of COVID-19. However, in coordination with the group representing the government, the Hloto and the Tamaro, the group representing the ethnic armed organizations which signed nationwide ceasefire agreement, and the group representing political parties, the NRPC, could successfully hold the fourth session of Union Peace Conference 21st Century Benlone in Naypyidaw from the 19th to the 21st of August 2020, in line with the rules and regulations of COVID-19 prevention and control health measures. The Tamaro has also announced suspension of military operations in the conflict zones, except for the areas of terrorist groups from the 10th of May to the 30th of September 2020, for effective measures of control, prevention, and treatment of COVID-19 more widely while aiming for internal peace. It is announced that the NRPC will continue to establish a genuine democratic federal union expected by the national people with absolute determination. The Ayawadi Foundation is building a COVID-19 temporary medical center that can accommodate over 400 patients at the Duwana Youth Training Center in Yangon. The construction was started on Saturday, and the works are expected to be completed in the coming days. The Ministry of Health and Sports will manage healthcare services and treatments at the center, and the foundation will provide all the funds required for the whole infrastructure, logistics, and supplies, as well as the expenses for daily meals. The Ayawadi Foundation is working together with the Ministry of Health and Sports in measures against COVID-19, including the establishment of some quarantine centers. People returning from abroad and those who come from any region and state and local to Gaya State will be put into a 14-day community-based facility quarantine, and their swabs will be tested for once time and then put under home quarantine as of Saturday. According to Gaya State COVID-19 Containment and Emergency Response Committee, in conducting community-based facility quarantine, except from people returning from abroad, all from all parts of the country, including state service personnel, will arrange food by themselves. And if they have food arranged by quarantine center, they will pay the cost 2,800 jets per day. Gaya still remains only state free from COVID-19 cases in Myanmar. And I believe it's time now for our first report. The numbers of the COVID-19 cases in the country are getting higher and higher. At first, local transmissions dramatically ascended from Rakhine State. Other big clusters were detected in Yangon, followed by Mandalay second. From those clusters, many confirmed cases were discovered, and the number of the confirmed cases announced by the Ministry of Health and Sports was recorded with 351 confirmed cases on Sunday alone. Let's take a look at the report for more details.
The numbers of the COVID-19 cases in the country are getting higher and higher as the local transmissions dramatically ascended in Rakhine State firstly. Other big clusters were detected in Yangon, mostly followed by Mandalay secondly. From those clusters, many confirmed cases were found out, and the number of the confirmed cases announced by the Ministry of Health and Sports was recorded with 351 confirmed cases on 13 September alone. Danyingone is one of the townships which has over 250 COVID-19 confirmed cases in this resurgence of the COVID-19. Umau regional representative from Danyingone Township spoke to MI Radio how they are currently carrying out the prevention process in the township to control the infections. He said,
We didn't allow any visitors to go into our townships. With the help of the volunteers and community organizations, guards are assigned in each street and every ward. We also give the marks in the markets and to some poor people cooperating with the Red Cross organizations and some volunteer organizations. Under the guidance of the Yangon Region Health Department, we disinfected in all 10 wards which had the most confirmed cases. The infections are very high in these current situations. Many people were careless before the resurgence of the infections. In this situation, I want to urge all the people to stay at home these days and to report to the Ministry of Health and Sports if they experience some symptoms of the COVID-19.
Before the resurgence period until 15th August, there were a total of 374 confirmed cases. From the 16th August to 30th August, a total of 369 cases increased. From the 31st August to 13th September, a total of 2,158 new cases were detected in the country. So amid the resurgence period until 13th September, a total of over 2,500 confirmed cases were found out. And with the increasing number of 83 patients announced on the morning of the 14th September, the total confirmed cases of Myanmar have reached over 3,000. Due to this infection, many health workers are also tested positive while they are taking care of the patients. Dr. Sidulin, the specialist from the Yangon Workers Hospital, spoke to MI Radio that the infections are very asymptomatic and the death cases increase a lot, so that people should try to stay at home these days. He said,
Just before the resurgence, the medical researchers also said that COVID-19 is very high risk in infection, and the virus mutation is causing the outbreak to spread quickly. People in Myanmar have thought that they have experienced the infection. The infection is only just the beginning, and people started to ignore the infection. That's why all the infection cases increase a lot these days. All our people need to participate in this prevention process with the Ministry of Health and Sports and don't be afraid of swab tests.
As the Yangon region is the commercial city and has a lot of population by comparing to the other regions and states, Yangon is the highest number of confirmed cases with over 1,600 cases, and Rakhine State the second with over 700, and Mandalay the third with nearly 100. Gaya State remains the only state in Myanmar which has not yet reported a COVID-19 patient since 23rd March, when the country reported its first case. COVID-19 prevention and control measures have been carried out at the border gate as well as the entrances and the exits in all the regions and states. Around the world, a total of over 29 million people are afflicting from the deadly pandemic, and over 21 million people are recovered with over 928,000 deaths. Myanmar ranked in 136th place in the World Coronavirus Infected Chart, and Myanmar is in the 6th place in the ASEAN COVID-19 Infected Chart. Myanmar reaches a total of 3,299 confirmed cases, with 790 recovered and 32 deaths, as of the data released from the Ministry of Health and Sports as of 8 a.m. on the 15th September.
That's the report on COVID-19 cases in Myanmar, up beyond 3,000. because of the restrictions laid down on Yangon region, including the ban on going in and out of the region and the curfew on going out at nights. There have been some delays and difficulties occurred in freight transport to Danyingone Market, one of the main markets of Yangon. Moreover, the fresh goods sellers are also facing with a decrease in sales during the resurgence period more than during the earlier period.
The Danyingone Wholesale Market, located in Insan Township, is one of the two main markets of Yangon, distributing fresh fruits, vegetables, crops, flowers, and dry consumer goods to the whole region. It is built on 85 acres of land, with over 1,600 sellers are working at over 3,800 booths out of available 5,600 booths. Because of faster spread of COVID-19 in Yangon, stay-at-home order was imposed on some townships of Yangon, and restrictions are released, including banning going in and out of the region. The restrictions as to the COVID-19 spread lead to the difficulties in freight transport to the Danyingone market, and additionally, the sellers are facing with drop in demand. U Zote, owner of Myanmar Fresh Goods Shop from the Danyingone market, said.
Because of the ban on going out at night from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning, we have the problems of freight transports, so there have been delays. Moreover, to deliver the goods in time, the farmers or producers have to do the production a day ahead, which leads to quality drop in freshness. Normally, I had sold 3,000 pieces of chili per day and above 1,500 to 2,000 pieces for tomato, but the sales rate of the commodity is dramatically dropping down. The customers only buy the basic foods and vegetables that are essential for the daily meal. I'm not the only one who was facing the drop of sales rate, but the rest of the sellers are too. Despite the difficulties, the sellers cannot stop working for the living. We cannot claim the profits from our goods. During the beginning period of the COVID-19, the sales rate dropped about 20%, and now, during the resurgence period, the sales rate drops about 50%.
The fruits, vegetables, and other fresh goods are transported from different parts of the country. Some of the wholesalers contact with the supplying companies, but some invest in crops farming by giving capital to the farmers, and they are losing profit in their investment. In addition to the drop in sales, the sellers are also facing with losses in goods because of delay in freight transport. Udemaso, a seller of the Danyingone market, said.
The sale is not as good now as before, especially because of difficulties in transport, dropping about 2/3. Moreover, the night market is also closed. Because of the delay in transport, some fresh goods are damaged on the way. Previously, all the goods were fresh and sold out as soon as they arrived. Now, we have to select the damaged ones as waste. For example, out of 10 pieces of chili, over 1 piece is wasted.
The price of the fresh goods drops as long as they are in stock because of poorer quality. The decrease in customers also leads to the decrease in price. However, on the other hand, the more difficult the freight transport is, the higher in the price of the supplies are. Go So Nai, fresh fruit seller from the Danyingone market, said.
The sale rate is dropping during the resurgence period more than the earlier period. Especially because of difficulties in transport, we cannot be provided with the necessary crops. Since the trucks from other regions and states cannot come here easily, the price of the supply is getting high, but here we cannot resell with higher price. Before the outbreak, we got nearly 4 lakhs to 5 lakhs as a profit, but now it's really hard to find nearly 2 lakhs.
The Danyingone market and the Rimingla market are the main sources of consumer goods in Yangon, and the authorities are working to continue running the markets. Despite the difficulties, the sellers are working hard to cover the daily expenses and help support their living.
That's the report on sellers from the Danyingone Wholesale Market suffer from impacts of difficult freight transport. Moving on to the third report. As the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic crisis, which rapidly affected the country, Myanmar Railways is currently implementing express and circular trains plying from Yangon region to other states and regions, with lesser numbers of trains. Zueman reports.
For ensuring smooth flow of commodities, Myanmar Railways is implementing express and circular trains plying from Yangon region to other states and regions with lesser numbers of trains. This is the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic crisis, which rapidly affect throughout the country. So every state and region announced and follow the health directives and orders strictly, based on the fact that people must not go outside or travel if it is not important. Myanmar Railways is currently going on providing rail service with at least each train on 6 vital railroad sections, but the remaining trains have been stopped from running. This is because the number of the passengers remarkably are on the decrease, and the travels are restricted in line with the directives issued by the National Level Central Committee on Prevention, Control and Treatment of COVID-19. Uzolin, Deputy General Manager of Traffic Number 7 Division, Yangon, Myanmar Railway said.
ဒီရထားတွေမှာเนาะကျွန်တော်တို့ကအဓိကဒီပြည်သူတွေရဲ့စာအုပ်နေစားတောက်ကုန်တွေကိုအဓိကဖြစ်တဲ့ကုန်စည်ပို့ဆောင်မှုလုပ်အောင်เนาะအဆင်ပြေအောင်လဲကျွန်တော်တို့စီစဉ်ပေးထားပါတယ်
In these trains, we are mainly planning to be able to transport the commodities, the essential thing for the public. We are mainly providing rail service with at least each train on 6 vital rail sections, such as Yangon-Mandalay, Mandalay-Mijina, Yangon-Pye, Naypyidaw-Chao, Patain-Changin, and Mandalay-Lasho. And we already announced the updated schedule of the trains in the respective stations for the public. The main purpose is to maintain the commodity flow. Since most of the crops entering Yangon come from Bago region, postal and parcel trains are also running on Yangon-Pye Railroad section. For the circular trains, we are providing circular train services for the people of Yangon to be able to reach the destinations on time during office hours. Our Ministry of Transport and Communications and the headquarters of Yangon Railways will keep on providing the rail service in accordance with the health guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health and Sports.
Number 3 up and number 4 down trains are running on Yangon-Mandalay Railroad section, one of the 6 key ones. Number 41 up and number 42 down trains on Mandalay-Mijina Railroad section. Number 63 up and number 64 down trains on Yangon-Pye Railroad section. Number 101 up and number 102 down trains on Naypyidaw-Chao Railroad section. Number 105 up and number 106 down trains on Patain-Changin Railroad section. And number 131 up and number 132 down trains on Mandalay-Lasho Railroad section, which is carrying most returnees from abroad via the border. Moreover, the runs of circular trains from Yangon-Loga Railroad section, Yangon-Tojangalei-Yuadaji Railroad section, and Yangon-Mingaladong Railroad section have been reduced, but the circular trains are running mainly during office hours for ensuring the convenience and comfort of the passengers. U Taung Thai, Chief Station Master of Yangon Railway Station, said.
The numbers of passengers for circular train relatively decrease. We're running our trains depending upon increasing number or decreasing number of passengers. There are still some passengers who are working for the company and other departments in this period, although most people are staying at home. That's why we are providing services for those who need to ride our trains in every rush hour. We are warning the passengers to know the ways how to prevent the disease by using loudspeakers as the resurgence is spreading faster than the earlier stage. And we are also performing all the checks while preventing ourselves from the virus risks. People are requested to wear masks properly, but not to wear in the wrong way by hanging masks in their chins when they take the trains. This is a must in performing the preventative measures against COVID-19.
Myanmar Railways has made the plans for transporting the passengers by using circular trains. Normally, 54 circular trains are running per day, but now only 30 trains are running currently as 24 are temporarily stopped from running. There are 2 runs for morning and 2 runs for evening on Yangon-Loga Railroad section, the same numbers on Yangon-Megaladong Railroad section, and the same numbers on Yangon-Dojangale-Yuadaji Railroad section. There are 4 circular trains running clockwise and anti-clockwise directions. If necessary, Myanmar Railways will be in preparation for extending circular train service.
That's the report on MR places special attention to commodity flow as express and circular services reduced. Let's move on to the last report for the day. As the COVID-19 impact has been gradually scaling in the forms of restrictions over travel and logistics business with certain transportation difficulties. In that regards, the officials from the respective ministries and associations were trying to avoid the shortage of goods amid COVID-19, and Waterway becomes one of the potential solutions to mainly focus on.
Not only roads, but also waterways are being locally used to avoid the shortage of goods amid COVID-19. After the COVID-19 has come to Myanmar, Yangon became the worst affected region. But later, Rakhine State became the most suffered region according to the statistics on 30th August. Then the resurgence occurred in most of the areas, including Yangon, other divisions and states. So the officials from the respective ministries and associations were trying to avoid the shortage of goods amid COVID-19. It was learned that State Councillor Daw Aung San Suu Kyi helped with the smooth and secure flow of commodities for ensuring that the public should not fear for shortage of commodity, as the restrictions on entry of states and regions, including Rakhine, Magwe, Bago, and Ayawadi, were imposed because the virus can rapidly spread. The plans for collecting rations for the people have been made in advance, and the 5 categories of dry rations have been delivered to the people since the previous danger. The Department of Consumer Affairs Department under the Ministry of Commerce delivered 250 tons of rice and 250 tons of edible oil to the people residing in Rakhine State by means of Waterway. Uye Tonai, Director of Department of Consumer Affairs Ministry of Commerce, said.
Our department's first priority is distributing foods for people to prevent from food shortage when COVID-19 occurs. It is known to all that when COVID-19 resurgence happened in Rakhine State, the authorities instructed us to distribute 250 tons of edible oil and 250 tons of rice to Rakhine. As soon as we were instructed to send those, we shipped it to Rakhine as Myanmar Maritime Affairs Department arranged the ship. And our ministry is ready to give a hand as needed. There are also plans to provide foods if people are in need with the instruction of authorities. As we bought those with the state budget, we gave those to people free of charge. That's no problem due to cooperation with other departments despite weather conditions. We couldn't load rice because it rained so hard at that time and we only loaded the edible oil. Despite rains, we had to load edible oil till the rain stopped. We loaded rice. The problem is rice and it needs to be getting wet by its nature. The workers loaded the rice bags and edible oil containers regardless of the rain or sun.
Yangon region, which is the main driver of Myanmar's economy, is now trying to maintain an uninterrupted flow of goods to other states and regions, and coastal vessels carrying goods to Rakhine State have been permitted to berth in the middle of the Yangon River since 2nd September. To prevent the spread of the COVID-19. The virus is being tested at the port of Bagaya in Jiminai Township in collaboration with the Regional Public Health Department in accordance with the rules and regulations. Only when they show no positive for the virus, they are allowed berthing and loading and unloading at the jetty. Wu Yan-ao, head of Office of Myanmar Coastal Freight Forwarders Association, said.
We cannot give permissions well. When a ship arrives at the port, we have to inform to the general administrator and COVID committee. For example, the ship is not allowed to land after informing in Baguia, but they allow the berthing temporarily when the COVID committee comes to check. The sailors are not allowed to set the land. After checking, the ship has to set the anchors in the middle of the water. If the result comes out and a person is infected, they take that person and the rest crews, and the ships are allowed to berth to load and unloading goods. However, before the loading and unloading the freights, the sailors have to open the hatches and they have to go to the back room and are not allowed to go out to avoid contacts with the stevedores. When the stevedores have done their jobs, the committee sanitizes the whole ship. Then the sailors are allowed to come out. The sailors on board are not allowed to set the land, neither in Yangon nor in Sidui like they used to do, but not now. There are a bit of problems that some sailors who do not understand the rules landed and went back home. Then the police came after them and they got arrested. That happened only once. We told about this to the owners and the representatives.
During this month, the ships preparing to depart to Sidui, Rakhine, namely Srinagar, Thawara Mitta, Sri Tarapu, Jeton Ao, Ao Yadana 2, Sri Sipyo, and Tawang Yadana are waiting for the permissions by doing medical examinations according to the health guidelines.
That's the report on Waterway becomes main focus to avoid shortage of goods amid COVID-19. Now we move on to international news. TASS reported Russia will provide a state credit amounting to $1.5 billion to Belarus. Russian President Vladimir Putin said at a meeting with his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko on Monday. In addition to announcing the loan, which Putin said Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin had agreed to during a recent visit to the Belarusian capital, the Russian president signaled support for Lukashenko in other ways, saying defense cooperation would continue between the two countries. Russian news agencies reported separately that Moscow was sending paratroopers on Monday for joint exercises. Putin also backed plans Lukashenko has previously announced for constitutional reform, which the opposition has dismissed as a stunt to cling to power after an election it says was rigged, and said it was up to Belarusians to resolve the crisis themselves. A Chinese Long March 11 carrier rocket carrying 9 satellites was launched from a platform in the Yellow Sea on Tuesday morning. The satellites were successfully placed in orbit. This is the first commercial launch from a sea-based platform for a Long March 11 rocket. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine on Monday hailed the discovery of phosphine in the atmosphere of Venus, a gas which on Earth can be attributed to living organisms. Conditions on our planetary neighbor are often described as hellish, with daytime temperatures hot enough to melt lead and an atmosphere comprised almost entirely of carbon dioxide. A team of experts detected traces of phosphine, a flammable gas that on Earth often occurs from the breakdown of organic matter. Writing in Nature Astronomy, the team stressed the presence of phosphine did not prove the presence of life on Venus. But as the clouds swirling about its brawling surface are highly acidic and therefore destroy phosphine very quickly, the research did show that something was creating it anew. That's all with the news and reports on Myanmar Today. Hope everyone is staying safe.